Trek to Yomi, one of the free PlayStation monthly games for June, has me very confused about how to feel about this game and how to analyze it. Not just because it's in Japanese and I don't know how to read.
Furry collectibles?
But because some bizarre decisions were made in this one, and although there's a lot of things they do well, everything seems a little bit off through my first 2 hours of playing this one. For this first 2 review, I play a couple hours so you don't have to, yeah. I hopped into this one on the Bushido difficulty, and I feel like it's some bullshit-o that means medium and not like insanely crazy and difficult. English isn't the only language that needs some changes, but it says you're there for the story and the sword. Overall, I felt the difficulty could have been a little bit more significant in that mode, and still wasn't too challenging with a lot of enemies taking just 1 or 2 hits and there not being overwhelming numbers just about ever. Because although the entire game is essentially chasing after this army of raiders that have left every space you've encountered in devastation, you never really come across the entire group of them. They're never gathered. It's just stragglers of duos and trios for the most part, all the way through. And the core experience of going through these villages does feel really strange. It's kind of set up that as the samurai, you're just about the sole person in charge of protecting this entire area, which ends up being an enormous space to cover. And what that results in is that you're always late to help people. You're just walking through devastation your entire time playing, which certainly establishes a vibe, and that being one of like guilt and sorrow, which sure, you can go for that direction, but as a game that you're gonna try to go through and enjoy or find some value in, it is a little bit difficult. And the way it could still be compelling even with such serious and dark subject matter is to really have some depth within some of the characters, or just to do that story extremely well. I didn't think it ever really got there. It was pretty predictable at the start. Main character has a mentor who's his father. You see him immediately. Aren't gonna guess that the sensei's about to die here, especially as he gets pulled to go investigate some action and doesn't want the kids to come. Oh, also, Aiko. This is supposed to be our sister. They're gonna talk like lovers the entire time. I don't know if it's a language barrier thing, but it's disturbing. Doesn't want the kids to come, but the story mostly feels like a generic Normu, and it feels like it's just an experience of general destruction and sadness without giving you much connection with that, because you just pass villager after villager that is crying and crushed by the catastrophe. Even when it happens to your own village, the people you're supposed to be directly linked with, there's nothing special going on there. And as the main character, you're not very personable either. So it's got this dark, repetitive, sad feel, but it doesn't feel like it's really leading anywhere. Until deep into the game, you die, and you get this strange twist out of nowhere of now suddenly smiting Smeagol's. And I'd argue this is actually a bit of a downturn for the quality of the gameplay too, because the combat is actually pretty cool. You can do some interesting things with your sword. But I find fighting these undead enemies a lot less interesting, as they are less aggressive, because they're slower and attack less frequently, so you don't have to be as on point with your counters. And they're not as much as a threat, but also you can't stagger them with your attacks, so you can't pull off these interesting combos that become the most satisfying and compelling parts of the combat. And so the transitioning into this new story took a long time, was kind of out of nowhere, and really just wasn't done smoothly. Another thing you can say that about it sometimes is their camera angle switches. However, I would also view this as one of the strongest parts of the game, and factors that helped keep it fresh more than just about anything. Because you're kind of always doing the same action, the enemies are pretty similar, they don't have diverse difficulty, and you're working your basic combat just about all the time. But the saving grace is the different shots and creative cinematography catalog that can help to break up some of the normalization of destruction and familial devastation, because you're getting these really wonderfully set up scenes that you are actively playing in. And the different styles of staging the fights and surrounding area do wonders to make this game feel a little bit better. Which is also not to say it's a bad game. I think it looks great, the fighting is pretty solid. I enjoy being an optimistic samurai slayer, but I think the story needed some more speedy plotizement with better attention in its transitioning periods. And there's gotta be something more to make it feel worth trudging through depressing environments that are unsalvageable for so long. Overall, I am Confucian. That's it for the first 2 review.
Oh, that's okay. Huh. Right.